Good afternoon, everyone. It's Coram and Justin Nielsen here with a look at the action for Monday, December 4th in the stock market, where we saw the Nasdaq, S&P 500, and Dow close off session lows, and the Russell 2000 with a strong finish to the day, Justin.
Yeah, so there's some interesting things going on here. Possibly some rotation. We'll get into that, and also a few stocks that are looking interesting. Uber, which is extended, but we'll talk about some news there. Booz Allen Hamilton, and also TopBuild.
Great. We'll get to those three stocks, but first let's take a look at the major indexes. The Nasdaq today down 0.8% by session's close. The S&P 500 off by 0.5%. The Dow down just 0.1%, and taking the lead today was the Russell 2000 up almost 1% by the end of the day. So looking at the Nasdaq here, you can see how we did finish off lows for the day. Of course, still a down day, but we're holding above 14,000 and that 21-day line still.
Yeah, both great lines in the sand to be holding above. And look, it's not the end of the world if we come below those a little bit, but I certainly would like. It tells me that there's a stronger market if it can hold above those. That this pause is not very serious. So yeah, I like the fact that it's getting support there, but certainly I think the story here is the Russell 2000. I mean, after
Absolutely.
its huge move, almost 3% on Friday, to continue going up with another 1% gain today. And again, we're seeing a lot of the mega caps taking a
Yeah.
break. We were talking about this on IBD Live, Ali, where Microsoft, Meta, actually, if you look at FNGS, that's exactly what you brought up. That's looking like it's just kind of pulling back a little bit, not in a disastrous way, but you've got a lot of other things that are coming on strong.
Hmm.
So you look at RSP, in addition to the Russell 2000, RSP kind of has a similar look, very strong on Friday, not as big today, but certainly, not as bad looking as the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 themselves. QQEW, not down as much as the Nasdaq or the Nasdaq 100. And if you look at the advancers versus decliners, I'm looking at Thinkorswim right now, and I'm actually seeing more advancers than decliners on the Nasdaq e- e- exchange, and about even, almost exactly even, for the New York Stock Exchange. So there's a little bit of rotation going on here.
Hmm.
We're seeing small caps come on. Maybe some of the things that have been out of favor coming on a little bit stronger. So that's definitely something to watch.
Right. And before we move on from the Russell, what do you think about the action here today for small caps, given with what we saw with the 10-year?
Well, the 10-year, the fact that the 10-year was up a little bit and the Russell 2000 was still able to make progress, I think just kind of goes to show you that right now the magnet is to the upside for the Russell and the small caps. The damage has kind of been done for the for the 10-year yield, and I think the Russell and a lot of people are looking forward to cuts happening, sooner than expected, rather than later, as early as March potentially. Now, I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves because the market has done that before, where it was expecting cuts. I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was expecting cuts at the end of this year, and that became squashed pretty quickly. So just remember that the when you're looking at the futures, Fed fund rate, and all of that stuff, these are things that can change a lot. Very
Oh, yeah.
news driven. So this is why we don't try and prognosticate too far into the future. We're looking at what's happening right now in the market. And right now, this isn't, I think, anything to be worried about, but you do have to be aware of that sector rotation that's happening under the surface to maybe just position yourself a little bit better.
Right. Well said there. And in terms of the action or rotation in the tech area, I mean, we've seen the mega cap techs, a lot of them leading the action in November. So here, as December gets further underway, seeing a little bit of a pullback, I think it's going to be an interesting week.
Hmm.
Justin, we have been in a power trend, and this is the first test of the 21-day line here for QQQ. I know we're not quite there yet for the NASDAQ composite, but I think with a lot of those mega cap techs underneath the surface, as you mentioned, whether it's Meta, whether it's NVIDIA or Microsoft, a lot of them are testing key levels, whether it's the 21-day line or the 50-day line. So whether this week will end up being a potential buying opportunity if they can bounce, or a week to sell if they break and close weak. I think it's going to be interesting to watch as this week unfolds.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ali. In fact, I'm going to start asking you questions. I think it's time for you to be on the hot seat because your analysis is spot on right there. So, what do you think in terms of where that money could possibly go? What areas are you looking at?
Well, I think right now I was encouraged to see the kind of close that we got today. So I think when we're in a power trend, that means that we are slowing our selling, giving our leaders a little bit of room. I think the last time I checked in on NVIDIA, it wasn't really bouncing quite like maybe some of the others in the Magnificent Seven. Let's check in on Microsoft. So, yeah, clinging on to its 21-day line. So, some of them look a little bit better than others. So I don't know. I mean, tech has been leading. So we'll
Yeah.
have to see if this rotation is just a couple of days of rotation. I feel like maybe we saw that a little bit in 2021, if memory
Yeah.
serves me well. Or it could be a little bit more prolonged. Maybe instead of just bounces off of the 21-day or the 50-day, maybe these mega caps need a little bit more time to rest. Or if we are in a strong market, as you said, which we'll have to see day by day as that unfolds, maybe this week these pullbacks and bounces could be buying opportunities for the stocks that have been leading. So right now, I think the jury is still out. Are these leaders going to continue to lead? And we're just going to add more stocks to the party. It looks kind of like that's what we're seeing right now, but that doesn't mean that these stocks can't break as the week progresses. So I think we just have to stay nimble and see what happens as this week unfolds.
And I think that would be the ideal situation if, everyone starts kind of partying together, right? And
Right.
and, and no one's left out of the game. But as you said, you certainly do have to be ready for that rotation. Certainly, we were looking at gold, like GLD, for instance, as, a potential spot that was ready to take over. That was looking strong. That kind of took it on the chin today. Oil, if you look at OIH or XPO, USO, any of those, you'd expect that with the OPEC plus cuts, trying to stabilize prices, that there would be a little bit more oomph here, and that seems to be kind of giving way. But that's kind of that shorter term sector rotation. We'll have to see if something kind of goes lasting. And remember that you can have the indexes look very different from your portfolio sometimes.
Right.
So this is really about how you position your portfolio, and are you following and going where the strength is.
Exactly. And I mean, I think a notable area to watch right now, of course, is the small caps. Great to see that participation. And I think last week, notable action for the Dow. And
Yeah.
it had a strong close as well. So we'll have to see if it can find a home above 36,000 or if it's going to pause here, pull back, hold above that 21-day line. We'll have to see. But it does seem like even on a down day like today, some encouraging action underneath the surface and seeing that broadening out of leadership.
Yeah. But again, I think it's going to you have to really look at your own portfolio to kind of make some judgments here. If you bought stuff maybe a little extended or maybe a little bit more recently, you might have to trim some of those. But
Yeah.
don't fall asleep at the wheel, because there could be new opportunities coming, or you might even have to buy back some of the things that you get shaken out of. That happens all the time.
Yeah. Very, very well said there, Justin. Yeah. I don't know how Palantir closed, but they weren't all winners today.
Yeah.
And here's a great example of that. So yeah, it all comes down to what's in your portfolio. I know you and I are both in this and selling.
Hmm.
So this one did
Yeah.
not bounce or recover off the lows today.
Yeah, and again, one of the reasons why I was selling this, number one, hey, it's a volatile stock. Do I really want to be in something that volatile with extra volatility in the market? And number two, I didn't have much cushion.
Yeah.
So, the things that I'm focusing on right now are the things I have more cushion on and that are holding up better. And certainly a stock that goes down almost 10% in a day, which is not abnormal for it. That's not necessarily what I want to be right now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm just going to quickly cruise through some sector ETFs and then we can take a look at some individual names. So here's IGV down today, but off lows, taking a hit of about 1.3% by sessions close. So an outsized decline here. So some selling in the software sector. But if you look at XSW, which does have a little bit more broadening
Broad,
of
yeah.
the holdings there. This one was up today by about 0.7%. So maybe further indication of that rotation out of some of those larger names.
And IGV is very heavily stacked in your Microsofts, your Adobes, and things like that.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
Let's also quickly take a look at KBE. So bank stocks of regional banks here continuing to look strong, extending gains, a really big gain on Friday and reversing higher today. So another potential area to keep tabs on, it looks like.
This one isn't the regional bank one. This is the bank's KRE is the regional bank one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I thought both
uh,
of them were regional. So
yeah,
that tricked me. So the
yeah, but
S&P
they
Banks Select Index.
but they both look very similar. So I can't fault you for getting them mixed up.
Keeping me honest, Justin.
The chart looks exactly the same. So you really do have participation from both of these areas. And just for fun, let's go ahead and look at XLRE, which was the top sector spider fund today. That looks kind of similar too. That it had that strong Friday and following up today.
Yes. Okay. More stocks added to the party. We like to see it. Uber, let's go there, Justin. Not the best close here, but still up 2.2% on the day in volume on news that it's going to be added to the S&P 500. So extending gains. I think it was up as much as 5% or something like that at one point throughout the day. So it did close off highs. So I think there's a lesson here. I know on IBD Live, we had a number of folks asking us, is this the kind of catalyst and the kind of strength that I should be buying into? But if you look at this chart here, Justin, even when it was at the highs of the day, or I guess especially when it was at the highs of the day, this is a very extended stock.
Absolutely. And so that's the warning. Don't buy extended because you can easily find yourself in a good stock that you're not able to hold because you didn't buy right. Buying right is half of the game or more than half of the game. If you buy right, it just takes care of a lot of your sell decisions for you. So this is just kind of your reminder. If you have Uber, this doesn't bother you, right? You're still up 2.25. You're not as bothered by this and you have a lot of cushion. So, congratulations to you if you have Uber, but this is not the time to be looking for, oh, was today a buy opportunity? It
Right.
wasn't. It's already extended. Look for the pullback. Look for, and again, this is a strong stock. So I don't mind people looking at this, having this on their watch list, but it's not ready yet. You have to wait for that pullback to happen or a
Absolutely.
base.
Okay, next on our list, let's take a look at BAH. A strong day here for the consulting stock, up 2.4%. Didn't have above average volume today, but it did one day last week. And in October, some buying coming into the stock as well. So a powerful breakout here today, price wise, maybe not volume wise, above the 130 level, Justin.
Yeah, and what I really like here is that you've got two bases here. One kind of a little bit on top of each other, went into the base a little bit, but look at the percentages. So the depth of that first base. Well, actually, let's go to the
Yeah,
long
yeah, I was about to
base.
say the same
Yeah,
thing.
the 22% base, and then it has a 15% base, and then it has a 12% base. So they're getting tighter, which is a good thing. You've broken out of an area that your classic cup with handle that it's broken out of now. This is something that does have some decent numbers behind it. This last quarter wasn't great, so that's something that you maybe want to dive into a little bit, but it's also in an interesting area. Consulting
Mhm.
doesn't really tell the whole story. Sometimes you have to read what it is that it does. Provides defense, intelligence, and civil management and technology consulting services. Aerospace and defense, something that we talked about on IBD Live today. It's one of the top industry groups. We're seeing a lot of the growth 250 in there. When we build our IBD Live watch list, there's a lot of aerospace and defense that's coming up there. So the fact that these are consultants for that strong group could have a little bit of a follow-on effect. So I'm always looking for things that might also benefit when there's a group move that you might not always think of. So I would put Booz Allen Hamilton in that camp. And the breakout right here does look interesting. And so this is a stock that's not extended, but is just breaking out, today.
Yep. Okay, last but not least, let's take a look at BLD. Now working on its 6th week up in a row. We've got an RS line blue dot, a positive response to the last earnings report in early November. And taking a closer look at the daily chart, really seeing it tightening up here right below 300, broke out on Friday and extended its gains today with some volume behind the buying.
Yeah, and this is what I wanted to point out here is this is why we look at both weekly and daily charts, because a lot of times that weekly chart having that many weeks up in a row would turn me off. But when I look at the daily chart, sometimes it's just about where that Friday close was.
Mhm.
And when I look at the daily chart, I'm looking at that tight action, and that does seem long enough to me. It seems like it did kind of pause for two, maybe 2.5 weeks there, where it just stopped going, but it didn't give up any ground either. So normally we're not so excited about pullbacks to the 10-day moving average line, but in this case, it really kind of gave the 21-day moving average line a chance to catch up to it. It paused at a reasonable level. That 300 level was where a lot of congestion was previous. It's a round number. Psychologically, that does matter a lot of times. And then the way that it popped through there on Friday was very powerful. Good volume. It wasn't necessarily above average, but heavier than what we had seen for the prior couple weeks. So I think a lot of that action was very positive, especially the strong move it had off the bottom, and then the fact
Right.
that it digested those gains. So this is the kind of stuff that we're looking for. Still buyable here, but getting extended, so you don't want to wait too long. And this is the way a lot of the real estate stocks look like, whether it's the PHM, very similar, something that was probably covered last week. DHI was covered last week, I know, by Ed. So these all have a very similar look. So I think these are still potentially viable.
Yeah, and here's a look at XHB adding to its gains after breaking out on Friday. So definitely an area to watch. All right. Thank you, Justin. And thanks to everyone, of course, for tuning in. We will be back with more tomorrow morning. Where, if we didn't mention it enough times, IBD Live. We have lots of great conversations every morning where we are talking about stocks and the market in real time, trade ideas, market direction, portfolio management tips, what the team is thinking about. So much great stuff with 90 minutes of unscripted conversations, no commercial breaks, lots of great stuff. We hope you join us, investors.com/IABD Live, for all the details on that. We will see you there, and we'll also see you right back here tomorrow at the close.